To this special edition of The Assignment. Today happens to be Sunday, the 25th of July in the year 2020. Welcome once again, and we have a different conversation now. Away from the usual politics, we discuss issues to deal with the economy of the country. Now, the local currency has in the recent made tremendous improvements against the major convertible denominations, especially the dollar, which has presented different narratives and conversation from different stakeholders. And we've also seen the political players as well. They have taken it in a different way. Just today we heard a statement coming from DP President Harry Kalaba, of course advising government or giving a caution to government that they should not celebrate because this has got nothing to do with their efforts, or they have got nothing to do with government, inputs into the appreciation of the kwacha. On the program tonight, we engage financial and business expert Blessings Kafwanka is on the program, and also we've got Kelvin Chisanga. I beg your pardon. We've got Kelvin Chisanga as well, another financial or economic expert to help us digress on these issues. And of course, later on we'll be able to give you that platform as viewers to send in those messages. We want to hear from you regarding the appreciation of the kwacha in this country. Let's find out from here. Let me begin with Mr. Kafwanka. Where do you start from? I'm sure you are a business expert and also an economist. You might be celebrating right now because for a long time your conversation has been based on the kwacha, which was losing value on a daily basis. I'm seeing possibly there's a smile on your face today. Yes or no?
Well, that's a very interesting question and statement that you have just made, Innocent. Yes, indeed, one of the major concerns that I have personally had over a period of time now is the issue of the performance of the kwacha in relation to other major convertible currencies. And I always say that the currency of a nation, the currency of a country is more like a window in which you can peep through to see how things are going. So you may not have a lot of time to understand what is going on in Zambia, but if you want to get an idea, you look at how the kwacha has been performing. Similarly, other countries around the globe, you may not have the time to look through in detail exactly what is going on in terms of the way their economies are performing. But if you just basically look at the way their currency is performing, it basically gives you an idea of how the economy is, how sound the economy is. And for quite some time now, I think the kwacha has been depreciating against other major convertible currencies. And the appreciation that we are seeing now, of course, it might be, perceived in a positive light, because there are a few advantages that are likely to come as a result of that. But then at the same time, I think it also presents a number of challenges. And I say challenges because the most important thing that you need on the financial markets, the most important thing that you need on the foreign exchange market is stability. Okay, so appreciation is good, depreciation is bad, but when you have stability, it's all right. So what we have seen in the last about 4 days or so, the kwacha sharply appreciating by over 5%, that is instability on the foreign exchange market. And that is not very good for business. There are a number of concerns, which I believe we might be able to raise as the program progresses. But the sharp appreciation that we are seeing now is a sign that there is a bit of some instability, and there is likely to be speculation that is, likely to come as a result of that. So I think the most important thing is you need to have stability on the financial markets.
When you say, sorry, before I come to Mr. Chisanga, let me just get to understand what you mean. When you say this has been necessitated because of the instability on the foreign market, what could have caused this instability on the foreign space before we come to
Well, I think the Ministry of Finance and also the Bank of Zambia has really made a very good attempt to explain to the nation exactly what is happening, exactly what is causing the appreciation. And one of the things that has come out very prominently is the issue to do with the increasing copper prices on the global markets. Okay, now if you look at the way the trend has been from last year up to now, you will realize that the price of copper on the international market has been rising steadily. But we haven't really seen a corresponding improvement in the way the kwacha has been performing against other major convertible currencies. And instead, we have seen that the kwacha has continued on a downward trajectory. It has been depreciating further instead of appreciating, as a result of that particular increase in prices. And then all of a sudden, within a space of 4 to 5 days, you have this sharp appreciation. It tells you a story of exactly what is going on. It tells you a story that it's the only explanation behind the appreciation is. The appreciation is not just because of the increase in copper prices. There are a number of other factors which have caused this, and partly due to the activities that the Bank of Zambia has been involved in the recent past. I think these are issues that they've been able to explain in their statement. Okay, and to some extent, I feel the Bank of Zambia has got that responsibility to maintain stability on the foreign exchange market. So. One statement that came out in their official release was that they have been able to inject foreign exchange, forex, onto the market as at 23rd July. That is basically last week. They had released well over 687 million US dollars in comparison to 86 million US dollars last year. Okay, so that tells you a story already. Yeah.
All right, let's engage in Mr. Chisanga as well. As a financial expert, what would be your take regarding the appreciation of the kwacha we have seen now at the moment? Let's begin from there.
Okay, maybe to begin with, I would say that, we've had issues to do with inflation for some time now. And if you look at the composition of inflation, was actually looted from the exchange rate, as opposed to maybe other compounding factors. Of course, we've seen that if you look at the narrative of our Zambian inflation is always actually on the exchange rate, and that has been so much over time. Of course, we've seen that there have been some compounding factors like, pricing of oil and fats factors as a core cost leaders at this moment, where we've got meat going up as well as cooking oil going up in those edible stuff. So what I would say is that the bottom line here is that the inflation which has driven so much in the exchange rate would have actually taken our value of the currency, to a point where we would have seen ourselves going into a collapsing sort of level. So to avoid and augment some of these effects, that's a small reason why maybe the Bank of Zambia could have come. Of course, we have understood that they have offloaded some dollars on the market to just help stabilize on the exchange market fundamentals, which actually is able to help us now to see that some of these things will be able to start moderating, especially on the issue to do with inflation, because that's the biggest issue. If you look at the monetary policy rate, which was set in February and which was also maintained in the second quarter, it was actually trying to augment the effect of inflation. And that inflation itself has been going on an upward trend, going contrary to the expectation which we were actually having during the bumper harvest. Of course, we have actually recorded a very good bumper harvest this year in comparison to last year. So what I would say is that we were of expectation to say that during the harvest period, we'll be able to augment the effect of inflation. And actually, we're waiting to see if the monetary policy rate will be able to help us with the lowering the effect of inflation. But that worked contrary. it could not work out like that. So now, when you see the trend, of course, we've seen that there has been some growth in May as well as the March, where we even recorded some trade surplus. When it comes to the balance of trade, and also actually seeing that we have received a good reserves, going up. So what I would say is that the reason why it has come to be like this, because we've seen the trend of inflation going up. So to avoid going into collapsing, that's the reason why we have now seeing the interaction of this intervention, which the Bank of Zambia did on the 15th, which is previous week. They went into the market, offloaded about 687.5 million US dollars just to, cool the demand for supply. Because over time, we've been having a very stiff demand for dollar. And yet the supply was so narrow. So that's the reason why they actually came in and to actually incentivize all these needs. So that's the more reason why we're having all these effects now, starting from Monday this week. And of course, we've seen it appreciating. And of course, I'll concur with blessings. The rapid appreciation, it tells to say that there's a serious manipulation in all this system, because I think it would have been better to go gradually so that we are able to incentivize the effect on inflation in a way that it should be able to moderate other than the way it has come. Because obviously we have seen that this has been drawn from reserves, which has been doing very well. Of course, we know that copper has been buoyant on the international market, and we are able to see the good effect. Of course, we understand that now there has been a shape in terms of how copper tax receipts are being taken care of. Most of the receipts for copper are now eating to the Bank of Zambia account. Then, of course, we have seen a good and resilient sound of reserves, which actually is now trying to help us in this, because obviously the whole purpose is to ensure that we stabilize our currency. Yes.
Let's pick it up from there. I know that Mr. Kafwanka did submit that the appreciation of the kwacha might have been caused because of maybe instability on the foreign market, and some of the reasons he outlined is the issue of the copper prices and the likes, of which you've also somehow echoed the similar sentiments with that regard. The question is to both of you would be, should we begin to celebrate as a country over the appreciation of the kwacha? Because for a long time, I think our conversation has been based on the issue of the kwacha is going astray. So as a country, we are at stake. Should we celebrate as a nation, or we shouldn't celebrate as a nation? Let's begin again with blessings.
Well, there's been an appreciation, which might be perceived to be a good thing.
Yeah.
But the truth of the matter is that we are not out of the woods yet. Our problems haven't been resolved entirely. I say so because you need to understand the factors that have been causing the kwacha to depreciate.
Yeah.
Okay, for you to be able to understand exactly what you need to do for you to have a sustained appreciation in the kwacha. Okay, so there are a number of factors that have been putting a lot of pressure on the kwacha. One of them, we've talked about the price of copper on the international market, but then there are also issues to do with debt-related pressures. Okay, the fact that we are highly indebted. Okay, the fact that we spend a huge amount of resources servicing our debt, which is mostly denominated in foreign exchange, puts a lot of pressure on the performance of the kwacha, and that particular fundamental has not changed. Okay, and then we could be celebrating the fact that copper prices have gone up on the international market, but then the problem comes in. The problem is that we are still over-dependent on copper exports. So what happens if circumstances change in the next 2 to 3 months? okay, if there is a dip in the price of copper on the global market, definitely you expect that you'll be in problems again. Okay, so the most important thing is to understand the fundamentals that have been, causing the kwacha to depreciate, and put in place measures that will be able to resolve the problem in the long term. I am glad when you look at the economic recovery program that was put in place, I think December last year, quite a number of very good recommendations that were made, which I think we need to implement. Okay, we need to ensure that we cut down on spending and increase on our revenue generating capacity. Okay, the problem is that if you are spending more than what you are earning, you always have these budget deficits. And when you have persistent budget deficits, what do? You need to cover up on that particular deficit. So it increases your appetite to go out into the financial markets, to go and borrow. And when you borrow externally, when you borrow in dollars, automatically you are increasing on your stock of external debt and also increasing on your debt servicing expenses. Okay, so those are some of the issues. Those are some of the things that we need to be looking at and trying to resolve. So the appreciation that we are seeing now hasn't really been caused by an improvement in the fundamentals that have been causing the kwacha to depreciate. Okay, so meaning that we shouldn't really expect this appreciation to be sustained in the long term.
Okay, so yeah. I think for me, I'll take it.
And as you answer the same question, I want you to go further and possibly propose, how can the Bank of Zambia sustain the kwacha from where it is, or even helping it to gain further?
Okay, I think for me, I've just seen that, the appreciation of kwacha as at this particular moment has a lot of sentiments, a mixture of sentiment, how we should put it.
Yeah.
Of course, I understand that there could be a small portion that I would say is currently genuine, coming out as a result of maybe what could have happened in the market last week. Yeah. We all know that there was a bond auction. And obviously that has really triggered the performance on the kwacha as well. And we expect it to modulate, even stabilize in some way. So what I would say is that the part which the Bank of Zambia did could have actually helped to do it in a gradual process as compared to the lapid form, which has happened right this moment. Because what we have seen that it is taking at a very fast rate, which is not supposed to be the case. Yeah, so it will affect a number of fundamentals. With the rate, the way it is moving, it even suggests to say that probably this could be a temporal kind of setup, and we will not be able to sustain it any time longer. Probably it could just maybe work out around this period. If you go into the next phase, third quarter, we should be able to look at something different. And this will affect even how they are going to set the monetary policy, because it will give them a shadow view or focus. Because it will be difficult for them to set the monetary policy late. If you're told maybe they are trying to maintain it, because obviously when you look at the way it was framed in the second phase, where they basically looked at maintaining the monetary policy to ensure that they see the full effect of the policy. But now, since there has been some intervention in some sort of where there is a mechanical control, that becomes a very difficult situation. So what needs to be done in this case is that there is a need for Bank of Zambia to assess which sector as being productive, even despite having these challenges that we've been having as COVID conflicted situation. So from there, they can base now the focus on how the economy will perform. Yes.
Do you think, Mr. Kafwanka, as well as Mr. Chisanga, let's now try to attempt to answer this question, because there is a debate out there. People are thinking that possibly, and I know that even those that are in power, the government officials, the Minister of Finance, they might be celebrating now, and more especially the PF, because they are campaigning right now to ensure that they retain, power come August 11th. And this could be one of their campaign, tool for them to say, look at the kwacha now, it has appreciated and the likes, and once you vote for us, things will get better. They will capitalize on this. Has the appreciation of the kwacha been necessitated because of government policies or because of government hard work? Let's try to bring this issue to rest.
Well, from the discussion that we've had so far, and from the statements that have been released by the Bank of Zambia and the Ministry of Finance, it's very clear that in terms of policy changes, I don't think there's really been any policy change that has, caused the appreciation that we are seeing now. He talked about the monetary policy rate, which has been maintained at 8.5%. There hasn't been a change there, and it's very clear that the fundamentals that are affecting the appreciation is copper prices, number one, and also the fact that there was an increase in the subscription to government securities, your treasury bills and your government bonds by offshore investors. So that has helped to boost the amount of forex on the market. But obviously, as a political tool, obviously the ruling party has got every right to celebrate, because I did mention earlier on that has been one of the biggest concerns that a lot of people have had. The fact that the kwacha has been depreciating at a very fast rate, and that has led to an increase in imported inflation. He talked about the impact that the rise in inflation has had on our cost of living. We've seen that the prices of goods and services on the market has been rising at a very fast rate, and that is not healthy. That has got a way of painting the ruling party in bad light as we are going towards the elections. People are not happy. If things are going, the prices of things are going up at a very fast rate, people would want to consider an alternative. But the appreciation that we are seeing now is cause for the ruling party to celebrate, and it's also cause for some of us also to celebrate, despite the fact that there are some negative effects that are likely to arise as a result of this appreciation. But there are also a number of benefits that are going to arise. You and I will benefit. The business environment will also benefit. Cross-border traders will also benefit. The only downside is the instability is not very good, especially for the financial markets. Reports that we are receiving so far are that some bureaus are refusing to, they are hesitant to buy more dollars from people that want to offload the dollars, because they'll buy the dollar today at 20 kwacha. You don't know what will happen in the next 2 days. Maybe they'll sell it at 17 kwacha. So that instability is also not very healthy for the financial markets.
Let's hear from Mr. Chisanga as well. And should the government really, or those that are in the PF campaigning right now, begin to celebrate on the pulpit to say we have got a hard-working government by the name of the Patriotic Front? Look at the kwacha. Well,
maybe before I answer that one, I will just pose one statement to say that, you cannot use a political solution to sort out economic challenges, or vice versa. The reason why I'm saying this, because you can trigger certain things to happen, but of course sustenance becomes very difficult when you're using the political weapon. So what I'm trying to say is that, of course, PF has a very good mandate for them to look at, influencing the performance of kwacha right this moment, because they have seen that, would have landed ourselves into high standard of living, and that in itself would have given a very different market structure. It would have distorted the fundamentals in the market. Of course, the bad effect that it is going to have a short-lived kind of effect, because it's not something that is going to be based or have that a strong bedrock on the microeconomic stability, because obviously we've seen that it is something that just to intervene at this particular point. And of course, on the other side, as I mentioned, it's working quite well, despite the level at which they have applied, because the application is what is actually worrying me. It's basically applied in such a way that it's too rapid, and this same rapid, it's what is going to even cause now the effect thereafter. And again, also, the issue is that there is a need for us to see how we can sustain this, effect, because the effect that has been triggered by intervention of the central bank is basically having a different shape altogether. Because, as I mentioned at some point, the monetary policy rate, as it's going to be set next month, it will be not be able to be mirrored to what is actually obtaining on the ground, and that affects the whole focus when it comes to issues to do with the inflation focus or issues to do with growth. It affects everything, of which it's going to be a very difficult situation. So now what I'm trying to say is that if the appreciation is triggered by productivity increase, then it is justifiable. If it's triggered by increase in the export base, then it's justifiable. But in this case, we are questioning. Yes.
What are you questioning here?
Well,
are you questioning the productivity aspect of it, or
because you see, we are coming from even if I give you a scenario, the month of June was very low in terms of purchasing managers index. It actually recorded about 0.4%, and if anything, we haven't been doing so much during that month. You see, the month was characterized with the high levels of death, related to COVID. There were some slowdown in the economy, and obviously, one would question to say, all of a sudden, would you expect the increase of maybe supply or increase of economic value or economic growth overnight, and then you start seeing the appreciation? So that is what is questionable.
Mr. Kafwanka, I want you to, I don't know how we are going to simplify this, because I believe that on this program, I want us to trickle the message to our mother, maybe in Kalingalinga, Tendere, we talk about Kanyama, people that don't understand these jargons, terms we're using right now, let's find out in terms of what does the appreciation of the kwacha mean to an ordinary citizen in Kanchiria, in Petauke, in Mansa, in the village. What does this mean really?
Well, as a nation, we are an import-dependent country. We depend on imports for most of the things that we consume, starting from most of the foods that you find in the shelves of supermarkets, our household furniture, our household goods, and many other things. We import machinery, we import so many things, including fertilizers and fuel, petroleum products. Okay, and we have seen, especially for petroleum products, that the Energy Regulation Board, when they are fixing the price of fuel, the pump price of fuel, they look at the way the kwacha has performed in relation to the dollar. Okay, so an appreciation such as this one, if it is sustained, you should expect that there should be a marginal reduction in the pump price of fuel. And what does that do? That will have a ripple effect on the prices of other commodities on the market. Okay, you expect that the business community is going to benefit from that. Okay, you should also expect
how long should it take for the business community like you benefit from the appreciating of the kwacha?
Well, if you look at the way the trend has been in the past, for the Energy Regulation Board, I think it takes about three months or so for them to be able to review the prices of fuel on the market. Okay, right now they will tell you that the stock that they have was purchased at a certain price, and they may not be able to make any adjustment. But within a period of 3 to 4 months, you should expect them to act. And that particular benefit will be passed on to you and I as consumers. Okay, so we have a lot of cross-border traders that will go out there to buy a number of things, clothing items. So you should expect that the final consumers of those products are going to benefit from that. We've seen a lot of businesses that are housed in shopping malls where rentals are charged in US dollars. Okay, so if you were paying $1,000 for your shop last week, $1,000 meant that you needed about 22,700 kwacha, 22,700 kwacha cover to pay those rentals. But beginning Monday, you will probably need about, yes, you see. So the amount of rentals that you are going to pay will reduce. Okay, so that reduces your expense. If your expense reduces, it increases your profits. If your profits are increasing, it also means that the taxes that we are going to remit to our tax authorities, Zambia Revenue Authority, is going to increase. Should also expect that if ZRA is collecting more taxes, it means that the government has got more resources now to be able to provide public goods. It has got more resources to ensure that you've got oxygen in the hospitals, more resources to finance the education sector, employ teachers and nurses and all that. So the most important thing is the appreciation should be sustainable. And once that appreciation is sustainable, you expect the benefits to trickle down to the common man.
Let's hear from Mr. Chisanga. We've seen the kwacha appreciating the last few days.
Yeah, sure.
And of course, if you go into the markets today, you find that the cost of living is still high. And if you ask, a marketeer out there, they will tell you to say, we don't understand. This thing doesn't matter to us about the appreciating of the kwacha because the cost of living, or should I say the prices in the market have remained high. The economy is terrible in this country, and I would say most of the people in this country are suffering because of this the kwacha that we're talking about today. How best are the people going to benefit from the appreciating of the kwacha?
Yeah, there are a couple of ways and means in which they're going to benefit. Obviously, we know that if you look at the opposite side of weaker kwacha, basically triggers, expensive prices in terms of how certain things, consumable stuff, relate in the market. But obviously, when you see that there is a depreciation of the base currency or the appreciation of kwacha, it basically gives a very good, shape in the market, because obviously now we'll be able to, work in tandem with our budget. Obviously, we have seen that some of the local people here, if you look at their minimum wage and you look at their payers, payment that they normally get from most of the employment and most of the activity that they normally do, they are not all that much as per se. They do not have so much to give when it comes to that. So if the items that are imported maybe from South Africa or wherever becomes bearable in such a way that they're able to meet those needs. And when you look at the other aspect also, inflation always, as I mentioned, always linger around exchange issues. So if we have a better platform of local currency where it's performing very well, it means even the economic growth will be able to be triggered faster, because we'll see that, like as we are speaking right this moment, I don't think with the current trend we'll be able to see the interest rate going up, because obviously we are going to assess ourselves to say that looking at the current benchmark, we are going to have good value in terms of people participating. We are going to see a lot of our local players, SME players, to actually ensure that they get staff as they should be from other regions like South Africa and these other neighboring countries. Because obviously the amount of money that they're going to spend or fork out from the pocket won't be as much as they should have if it was on the depreciating tag or depreciating trend. So that gives a very good shape, actually. It's something that's going to help us so much if you look at the current fundamentals in terms of FX market. Yes.
And perhaps just in addition to that, I think the debt servicing costs as well, they are likely to go down, because the amount of kwacha cover that the government needs now to service the debt that is denominated in US dollars will also go down. You need less kwacha cover. So in the recent past, we've seen that the government has defaulted on some of the coupon payments on the Eurobonds. In November, we saw that they defaulted on a $42.5 million coupon payment, and we also saw a similar occurrence in February where they defaulted on a $56.1 million US coupon payment on one of our Eurobonds. Okay, so an appreciation in the kwacha basically means that we need less kwacha cover to service that particular debt. And what does that mean? That also means that the government has now other resources, has got more resources that have been freed up now that can be spent on other sectors of the economy, such as empowerment programs. You need to empower your youths, you need to empower your women. There are other important programs that have to be financed. So an appreciation basically means that you are saving on some resources that can then be channeled to other key and important sectors of your economy.
Though my other consideration is that if probably we could take advantage also with this situation, even if it does not seem to be a natural way, as far as the law of supply and demand is concerned. We can take advantage where we basically get some of the intermediate goods to ensure that we speed up with production to actually equivalent with the demanding needs in the economy. Yes.
Tell me something. You are experts. You know better these things. I might not be good, and also including some people watching us may not understand these issues. Not long ago, the debate or the answers, more especially from the people that are presiding over these affairs, economic issues, financial issues, they were saying the collapsing of the kwacha or the somersaulting of the Zambian kwacha was because of the COVID-19. According to them, it was an issue of saying the economy is bad everywhere. Wherever you go, the economy is terrible because we've got the COVID-19. So it's not only Zambia. It doesn't matter whether the kwacha is going to hit maybe 30 against the dollar, which maybe might be, as well higher. Never mind about it, because we are living in a COVID-19. The COVID-19 hasn't gone anywhere. We are still living under COVID-19. We have seen the kwacha again appreciating. Would you say, whatever maybe they've been saying, our political leaders, our government officials, that could have been just politics around or rhetorics around? Because the kwacha, we have seen it gaining amidst the COVID-19. What is the mathematics around this issue?
Maybe
or does it mean that still more, something can be done better even amidst the COVID-19? Can we simply say it's because of the poor policies by the PF government, if I'm to go that way?
Well, okay, for me, I think I would just love to thrash you a little bit back. Of course, COVID has really just come in to characterize much more on the effects. But most of the things that I would point out to say is that if you look at the economic architecture of Zambia, we are made in such a way that we are heavily dependent on the import commodities or import bills. So that has really destabilized most of the needs in the market. I would give a typical example in this case. What we have is a huge portion of service as a nation when it comes to the economic structure of this nation.
Sure.
And we've got a small portion of agriculture, and we've got a smallest portion of industrial base. So that in itself has really made our economic shape in a very precarious situation, if I may put it, if I may use that word loosely. Reason why I'm saying this, if you are to gravitate into a positive thoughts, we should be able to get ourselves to have a bigger space for industrial base. Then we have agriculture feeding into manufacturing. Then the service comes a small thing, or service comes as a third in the equation. We just basically do the opposite of what it has always been in our case. So if we are looking at that, would have actually helped to augment some of the effect that we've been having. But coming to what you're just asking, asking us, what I would say is that, Zambia before COVID had a couple of challenging factors. The COVID came to just exacerbated the all, economic issues. We are not basically looking at COVID as the main precursor in this case. COVID is just there to, as a complementary factor. But obviously we would say that there has been other issues, like he has mentioned of debt portfolio of this nation. He's mentioned of policies and few other things, of course. So it's only when we actually realize that we need to reshape and make some information in terms of policies and even in terms of how we contract debts. Maybe just to give you
what are some of the policies that you'd want maybe to be refined?
Well, if we move, it has been so much of a talk show on the issue to do with the industrialization and diversification of agriculture. These are issues that have actually been, talk shows. If we are to put ourselves and graduate from those talks, and we're able to actually go into reality talk shows by implementing practically, bringing industrialization policy to actuality, it can actually be a very good thing for us to do. Because obviously, somebody will ask to say, how should one go by, bringing industry in Zambia when it's required so much of massive investment? There are times we have seen, some of the imports that we have actually had, into this nation. We should be able to see, look, we have this commodity which is mostly a common factor for our production. Why can't we invite some of these companies that are in maybe wherever they may be, just to come and establish here, and then slap them with the tax holidays so that they're able to produce locally, so that it becomes cheaper. Then other things also is
don't you think that tax holidays have failed us in the past? I mean, Mr. Kafwanka, you are aware, you've been in the sector for a long time, where a number of the reports we've been receiving and covering some of the news stories is that the complaints or the concerns from you people in the financial industry has been that most of the investors, when they come here, they are given maybe tax holidays.
The problem
and then what happened, you find that when their periods, for example, when they stay in Zambia for the last maybe 4 to 5 years, they pretend not to be having money. Sooner or later, what do you see? You see them packing. They would have made their monies already. So I feel that maybe the issues of tax holidays might have failed Zambia.
You see, I think it's the level in which they take this, because from what I've understood over time, reason why some of these companies are actually behave like that, because there is too much attachment to political influence. So if we do things on a professional benchmark, I think we should be able to see some of these things work positively for the nation. Most of the times, we find that even when it comes to local participation or local content policies, we have just been talking about them. So if we are able to actualize some of these policies and ensure that we maintain what the contents of those local policies, policy instruments, we should be able to see some of these things, augment the effect that we've been having. Because obviously, we have seen that reason why we depend so much now on trade and commerce, especially trading partners with South Africa and these others in the SADC region, because we are now promoting the part of freight cost, capital freight, where every time when we have somebody playing a card outside the nation, they are only able to tap off the money which is in the nation. So that is what we need to actually see, that we also bring the local content policy, so that the local investors are able to invest into a certain sector or in some serious sectors of the economy, so that the money that they realize from any investment that they have is able to be used here, not where we have people now buying stock from outside and then they're bringing. So we need to promote a situation where we start producing locally. Then we're able to even augment some of the effect that we've been having from inflation, which results in the exchange rates.
Yeah.
Let's hear from Mr.
Well,
Kafwanka.
in addition to that, I think there are a number of things that you need to put in place for you to be able to grow your economy. For you to be able to encourage business and stimulate business activity within the economy. And tax incentives one of those things that we can utilize to do that. I do agree with you that in the past we had, experiences where investors would come into the country, they're given tax incentives, and they would basically just abuse those tax incentives.
More especially in the mining sector.
Exactly, and Zambians will not actually benefit from that. Okay, but that does not negate the need for awarding tax incentives to the business community. Okay, so tax incentives should not just be targeted to the mining sector or foreign businesses that want to come and invest in Zambia. Tax incentives are incentives that should be applied across the board. You should also be given a tax incentive if you want to invest in a certain line of business. Okay, the problem that we've had in Zambia is that there are certain other factors, certain other fundamentals, or certain other weaknesses that we have within the business environment, which makes it difficult for businesses to thrive. I'll give you a very good example of the tourism sector right now. I think there's a very huge tax incentive that was offered to our tourism sector, I think, with the coming of the 2021 national budget. Okay, the government did realize that the tourism sector is one of those industries that was hard hit by COVID-19, and they reduced the some of the taxes that were applicable. I'm aware that they did reduce on the corporate tax that they are supposed to be paying. But the question that we need to ask ourselves is, are these businesses taking advantage of that particular tax incentive? Okay. For me, I believe they're not really maximizing. Why? Because there are a number of other difficulties that they are experiencing. Okay, we might give you a tax incentive, innocent, for you to enter into a certain line of business, but you will not enter into that business because there is another restricting factor. You do not have access to affordable capital. You do not have access to affordable financing. Okay, you have other problems that might arise which make it difficult for you to enter into that line of business. So yes, we've had problems with tax incentives in the past, particularly tax holidays, but going forward I think we need to give these tax incentives, and I think the PF has done fairly well in terms of giving these incentives. They gave the incentive to the tourism sector. I think they also gave an incentive to those that would want to import alternative sources of energy, solar panels and other alternative forms of energy. They did give an incentive in that particular line. They also gave a number of incentives in the mining sector as well for those that would like to process some of the minerals that we are producing. If you want to set up a manufacturing plant and take advantage of the mineral wealth that we are endowed with as a nation, I think the PF has tried to give incentives in that particular line. Now, you asked a very interesting question about COVID-19 and the kind of impact that it has had on our economy. The fact is that COVID-19 has had a negative impact on the global economy. No country has been spared from that. And I do agree with those that have been giving that as an excuse. Like, for example, the PF has continuously highlighted the negative impact of COVID-19 on our economy. I think that it's a plausible explanation. Only that there are also a number of factors that we also need to consider. There are certain key policy issues where we have gone wrong. Certain things that we should have done in the past which have had a very negative impact on our economy. One of them is the contraction of debt. We have contracted debt at a very fast pace, and it has had a very negative impact on our economy. The other one is failure by the government to pay back, especially the local debt, the domestic debt. We have had a lot of suppliers of goods and services, people that supply goods and services to the government. They are not being paid on time. What does that do to their business? It has a very huge negative impact. Some businesses have not been able to survive. So that is a problem in itself. So there are a number of other problems that have compounded the whole situation. The other problem was the energy challenges that we were having, load shedding. Load shedding is one of those things that really had a negative impact on the business environment. And now I think it's good that the PF has really worked very hard within a short space of time to deal with that particular problem. And load shedding is now a thing of the past. And in some way, I think that is also contributing to the appreciation of the kwacha. Because before then, when we had load shedding, we saw that productivity across all sectors of the economy. Most of the productive sectors of our economy had been affected by load shedding. But now that load shedding is a thing of the past, I think there's been an improvement. Productivity has gone up, and it has helped to boost the performance of the kwacha against other convertible currencies.
How are the prospects of us really maintaining the kwacha amidst the COVID, amidst these elections? I know that you've mentioned that the PF has tried to work around these issues, in a short period of time. But again, we are living in a Christian nation, and Christians, most of them believe in miracles. And one would say these are some of the miracles we have seen, and we are yet to see from now going up to August 12, as we go to vote. We'll see load shedding disappearing from Norway, just like we've mentioned as well. We are going to see people being empowered in the name of the artists, being given monies and everything. If you are going to cry today, tomorrow crying for whatever money you are going to be given, again we are seeing another miracle here happening, or seemingly miracle happening about the kwacha as well, which you can't take it away from the PF. They are going to jump, they are going to celebrate about it, because it was another issue that was decampaigning them. All right? So really, how possible that we are going to maintain the kwacha from where it is, or even gaining value further than what we are today? Or should we go further again to say, without politicizing this issue, to say this is just a political gimmick as well, to say maybe they are trying to work tirelessly day and night to ensure that they bring all the pieces in order for them to win the elections. Once we cross over, it's going to be a different issue. What do you think?
There is a saying that God helps those who help themselves. I know that it's not in the Bible. It's not. I'm a Christian, and I know very well that it's not in the Bible. But I think it's a principle that I subscribe to.
Yeah.
Okay. What we have to do, even at an individual level, you have an obligation to do the right thing. You have an obligation to work hard and leave the rest in God's hands. So meaning that you have a role to play. You must do what you're supposed to do. Work very hard, and then miracles will certainly happen. So as a nation, we've got the obligation to do the right thing. We've got the obligation to implement the right policies. We've got the obligation to ensure that we do not contract a lot of debt. We've got the obligation to ensure that we maintain a very attractive business environment. Right now, I think the perceived political risk is very high because of the violence that we are seeing going on within our country. Just this afternoon, I went to one of our bakeries within our neighborhood, and I discovered that the gate was locked. I thought they had closed, but then they were not closed. So one of the security guards called me back and opened the gate. So I asked, but this is a public place, this is a business place, why are you closing the gate? And they told me, the political environment is very volatile right now. We are avoiding political party cadres from attacking us. That's the reason why we are closing the gate. So the political risk is perceived to be very high at the moment. Okay, so we've got an obligation to ensure that we maintain a very healthy and a very stable business environment for businesses to thrive. And then we'll be able to see the kwacha appreciating, and God in some way will come in, and miracles will happen only if we do what we are supposed to do.
Let's hear from Mr. Chisanga, because we need to move on to the issue to deal with that debt swap as well. It's another big story out there that I want much of your conversation. But quickly, let's talk about this issue, the prospect of us maintaining the kwacha from where it is, as well as maybe helping it to gain further.
Yeah,
it's the campaign period.
Yes, sure. The appreciation of kwacha, regardless of whatever circumstance it may be, or it could have come, it is a blessing in disguise, in that we just need now to trigger productivity so that we're able to sustain the economic growth that is required, and also we ensure that we anchor the inflation within the nominal agreeable levels, so that we're able to at least ensure that our economic stability start gravitating to a positive side.
Right. Yeah. Let's get into it now again. One of the prominent stories we've had in the last 2 weeks now is the debt swap, like I did mention I also hinted the fact that we are a Christian nation and more of miracles are happening. For the first time, we see the loans that civil servants had, gotten. Again, government comes in to say, we are going to take over your debts. So you are free molecules. What is your comment, really, Mr. Kafwanka? Let's run with 1 minute each because we're closing now. Sooner or later, my director will be telling me to wind up. Yeah.
All right. Debt swap.
Yeah.
Well, it appears to be one of those policies that is aimed at helping the civil servant. But in the long run, I don't think we are going to achieve its intended purpose. The reason is very simple. When it comes to accruing debt, it's more of a personal thing. Okay, it has to do with the attitude. The problem that civil servants have when it comes to borrowing from financial institutions out there is not unique to the civil service. It is something that you find even in the private sector. And if I decide to relieve somebody, try to take over their debt, you are not really solving the problem, because right now we are still debating this topic, but you still have a number of civil servants out there that are even contacting their bankers and asking, so if this debt swap goes through, how much can I borrow again as a maximum? I want to build a house, or I want to buy a house or invest in a business. Okay, once the debt has been cleared, they would want to start on a clean slate. Okay, but I think there are a number of benefits. I think we just have to be fair with this thing. We need to look at it from the positives and also the negatives. Okay, there are a number of benefits that are likely to arise if the debt swap goes through successfully, assuming that everything is done according to plan, and in the next 3 months the government will take over whatever civil servants are owing. There are a number of benefits. Number one, the civil servants themselves will benefit, in that they will now have an opportunity to borrow at a lower rate when they go to borrow from the public service microfinance institutions. That particular institution will give them these loans at a reduced rate of 5%. What does that mean? It means that their disposable incomes will rise. They'll be able to afford more goods, And what does that mean? The private sector as well is going to benefit from that. We've seen that when civil servants are paid, the business community at large benefits. You've seen that the traffic situation just in town will change all of a sudden. Even shops that would be closed on the weekend, you find that at the period when civil servants are paid, they will remain open. They will benefit from that. Okay. The other advantage that is likely to arise is the increase in liquidity on the financial markets. Because now financial institutions will have enough liquidity to be able to lend you and I who are in the private sector. They will have enough liquidity that they can lend even to small and medium-sized enterprises. So that is a benefit that is likely to arise. But then on the downside, the financial institutions are going to be affected, because we have quite a number of microfinance institutions that depend on civil servants. They depend on giving personal loans to civil servants. So when that happens, you can imagine what the kind of impact it's going to have on their business. Even for the banks, I think it's going to have a devastating impact. From the perspective of the government, if the debt swap goes through, one of the questions that I have been asking is, how are they going to finance this whole thing? Because we know that the government has got limited resources and there are a lot of unlimited needs.
And that was a lot of things that have to be... Because really, we are living in a country where we've defaulted on debt repayment before. Again, government has come out in open to telling us to say they have no money. Hence the problems, a number of projects that have stalled across the country. And we are saying no. Again, I'm trying by all means, pardon me, not to attach politics to this discussion, but I just have to, because we're in a period of campaigns. And therefore, campaign period comes, the government goes to the civil servants and decided to take over their debts. Really, what's the mathematics about it? And don't you think that maybe government is trying to play in the mindset of the civil servants, possibly, so that maybe they can vote for them?
Well, the move has got mixed sentiment, as one would put it. But obviously we see that this has been talks which they actually started a long time ago. But the problem that is there is that even when you look at the budget share for social sector or these other sectors of the economy, this was never budgeted for. So one would also question. And the biggest issue here is that if you look at even the way they are formed, all this, we've got about 1.1 million civil servants who are actually into this issue. And we are looking at having about 60,000 civil servants highly indebted. So it gives a bit of very bad scenario for the financial sector, because the financial sector development should be able to, be developed from all these people. So if the public service microfinance takes away all these, it means you're going to just distort the market in the financial circles, because obviously there have been some bit of dependencies, as you mentioned, from microfinance as well as even commercial banks. And to make even this discussion better, I would tell you to say that one of the biggest culprits, if I may put it, is that we have got a big chunk of people coming from Zanaco, and Zanaco has been doing very well, for the past 2 years because of the support that it has from the civil servants. So now imagine if it is being taken away with such support. Obviously, we're going to kill the financial sector. So what I would say is that the issue to do with this intervention has a lot of mixed sentiments, especially when it comes to issues to do with the canvassing of votes toward the certain political parties. Yeah.
As we go, Mr. Kafwanka, we need to go, but are there some ripple effects that this debt swap might bring in the long run?
Yes. Earlier on, I was alluding to the fact that if the swap goes through, given the fact that the government does not have resources, that is a fact we know, that they do not have the resources that are required to finance the swap, unless if they go to the financial markets to borrow. So it's likely to increase the stock of debt. Right. And what does that do? If your stock of debt goes up, your debt servicing costs will go up. That reduces the amount of resources available to be channeled to other key sectors of the economy. The other problem is the public service microfinance institutions. Does it have the capacity to be able to accommodate all of those civil servants that are going to benefit from this?
And we have a number of civil servants that have not been paid. We saw a lot of protests from the just under a minute. We need to go.
Okay. Yeah. The bad effect here is that there are people who have been faced with garnishing orders in this case, and the problem that has been there, it has been it has been done in an haphazard way, where there was no proper consideration of all these things. If there was proper due diligence in terms of concerning some of these things, I think it would have been better, other than the way it is being lashed, because we are also, allowing the, political day which we need to select our national leader going forward. So that also brings a lot of pressure and, rapid, in terms of action for all these things. So if we are to take time and ensure that we have done this in a very ample way and even employ a good restructuring procedure in terms of debts portfolios, this would have been better.
All right, Mr. Chisanga, allow me to appreciate you for coming, and as well as Mr. Kafwanka. We hope to invite you in the near future. I'm sure it will be on a day when the Kwacha again will appreciate further. I pray that it not be at a time when it's going to be another somersault. We appreciate you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you so much,
Thank you so
Innocent.
much. Great. Dear viewers, we also appreciate you for your support through the viewership you've given us this evening on the assignment. Thank you so much. On behalf of my producer and director, Mavuto Piri, we appreciate you. The people of Zambia as well, thank you so much. May God bless you. May God bless Mother Zambia. Good night.